In this video, I am simply passing along some of the tips and tricks that I've seen or have been shown throughout my career. As a new learner, pay attention to how your trade and also other trades accomplish their tasks. Here I'm going to show you how to measure something above your head without a stepladder. Start by extending your tape measure until it reaches the object and measure how many inches. In this case it was 16. Now let's use the tape measure for adding. Let's just say I needed to add 15 plus 43. You would line up the 15 and 43 and you would see you'd end up with 58. We can do the same thing for subtracting. If I wanted 115 minus 31, I would set the end of the tape at 115, look up 31, and you would see it's 84 inches. Here you will see me use my tape measure to scribe a rectangle 4 by 12. I am going to center this rectangle on the duct. So I set my tape to 2 inches, extend it to 4, find another straight edge, make your first line and extend it 12 inches, and do the same. This is called the 3-4-5 method. Anytime you want to lay out a 90-degree corner on the floor, on the ceiling, on a wall, you can always use the 3-4-5 method. These are units. It doesn't have to be inches. In this case, I'm just going to mark a 3-inch increment. Then I will set my tape to 4 inches, strike an arc at 4 inches, and then diagonally, wherever the 5-inch hits that 4-inch mark, you mark that point. And this should be a 90-degree corner. Like I said earlier, these are units, 3, 4, 5. And basically, it's a square plus b square equals c square. Let's test it. It's 90 degrees. You can also use 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 20, etc. So let's put that practice into theory. Here I am marking 12 inches one way and 16 the other. It's the same thing as the 3-4-5 method, but the larger the rectangle, the larger increments you should aim for. Therefore, my hypotenuse, or c square, should equal 20. And as soon as you have 20, as your diagonal distance, you've got a square corner. Here I'm going to demonstrate how to use a steel square as a calculator. In this case, if we have a fitting that would measure 10 inches tall, and one side is sloping 4 inches, the diagonal distance is your true length of that side. And it appears to be 10 3/4. I can either do it this way also with a piece of scrap metal, make a mark at 10 and make a mark at 4, measure the distance in between those two dots. This can eliminate some of the errors we make inputting into a calculator. This one here, again with the steel square, I have a pattern that I would like to add allowances to it. This happens often. Here I am adding a 3/4 inch allowance. At the moment I'm adding a half from my SN drive and another half, which is 1 inch, and so on. Inch and a half for a hem. In this case here, I just want to show you that on certain job sites, you might be required to cut one rod with your hacksaw or a grinder, and you'll notice if you cut it, you are burring the end that sort of prevents your nut from going back on. So one of the tricks for this is to put the nut on the rod first, then make your cut, then remove the nut, and as you're doing that, you are creating a thread on its way out, and you will be able to thread it back in. This little vice grip trick is often used in our trade. We often end up cutting duct, cutting the lock, and we have to re-notch the lock. One of the easiest ways to remove the lock is to put your vice grips or locking pliers on it and just keep bending until it snaps. Another thing that happens in our trade is we install round, heavy gauge pipe, often welded with a small flange on the ends. But there are times when we have to cut the pipe and reflange it on the job site. This is a bit time consuming, but it's still possible. You simply put a nut inside the vice grip to act as a backstop. The cut I am actually doing right now would be pretty hard using one set of snips. You would need a double cutting shear, but in this case here, if you use your red and green snips, you are actually creating a double cutting shear. The snips can also be used as a duct stretcher or duct puller. When it comes to installing rectangular duct, we always install it diagonally. We call this knifing the duct. It's easier to get in the S-cleats, on the bottom one and the top one. In this case here, it's impossible to knife the duct, perhaps because we have other ducts on each side. Therefore, simply slip the S-cleat on one end of one duct and leave the other on the other end. Do this to both S-cleats. And if all went well, it's in. After doing many jobs, there will come a time when you have forgotten to install one S-cleat. You can still install it without removing all the duct. Again, there will be times when you have installed the S-cleat, but you missed it completely. There are ways to install this one again without removing the duct. You can either remove this drive cleat completely or simply get it out of the way. Make two little cuts with your snips. This allows the S-cleat to fit in there. When removing duct and taking off drive cleats, this is probably your quickest way.